My entire professional career is dedicated to helping churches understand digital media. And in my experience, I see churches generally taking one of two routes. Either they'll blindly copy other churches they look up to, or they'll work to understand digital for themselves. Here's the secret though. Copying another church can actually be a smarter option than learning everything yourself. The problem? You need to do it the right way. And in this video, you'll learn exactly how to do that.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Tools, the show where in 10 minutes or less, you'll get a dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by the boss man, Brady Shearer.
Alex, this particular episode of Pro Church Tools is very, very important to me. And the reason is because I spend huge bulks of my day in the DMs talking one-on-one to so many of the great people within Pro Church Nation. And I see churches blindly copying other churches without understanding anything about digital media.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with copying per se, but you've got to do it the right way. And I need to say this all very carefully, not because it's controversial in any way, but because it's very intricate. And once you understand what I'm about to explain in this episode, it's an incredibly powerful technique and tool that you can have in your arsenal. But again, it's intricate, so I've got to do my best to explain it. But I'm making that disclaimer to put every listener and viewer on high alert that this episode might be a little bit more just you gotta listen.
Okay, well, I think what you're saying is there may be like a little bit of nuance here. Like one of our most, actually it is our most popular YouTube video is called Why You Shouldn't Copy Elevation Church. And so now here we are saying, well, maybe you can copy other churches when it comes to social strategy, and maybe for your church, you actually should.
Okay, here's how we'll start. I've made this into an alliteration, so hopefully it's easier to understand.
Right.
Think of digital communication as a whole, as a pyramid. So there's three different layers in this pyramid. There's the base layer, there's the middle layer, and there's the top layer.
Okay.
The base layer is the most important, the top layer is the least important. So the bottom layer is strategy. The middle layer is structure, and the top layer is style.
Okay.
What I see churches doing, the dangerous part, is copying that middle layer, the structure. If you copy the strategy of another church, if you copy the style of another church, there's not too many negative consequences to that generally. But if you blindly copy the structure of another church, that's when things can become dangerous. I have three different examples to hopefully prove this point. The first is church apps, downloadable mobile church apps. We talk a lot about why church apps are usually a bad decision for most churches. And the reason we talk about it so much is because we see so many churches diving into church apps because they're blindly copying what they see other churches doing.
Okay.
The strategy behind a church app is nothing wrong at all. You want to use mobile technology to reach people, usually beyond your Sunday morning. That's what we're all about at Pro Church Tools. That's the strategy. If you take that strategy, the next step would be the structure. And churches will generally jump into something like an app because they see other churches doing it.
Right.
But what we've done is we've reverse engineered that structure of a church app and talked about why there are better options to accomplish that same strategy. What about the top of the pyramid, the style? Well, let's say you're in an application and you see a navigation menu within that mobile app that you really like. That's the style.
Right.
That's just great UI. That's great UX. Copy that.
Yeah.
That's fine. Copy the strategy. Understand the importance of reaching people with digital media. But it's that structure part that if you blindly copy can be dangerous. And this is the difference between understanding digital for yourself and blindly copying.
Yeah.
Let's use another example. Live streaming. Churches love to jump into live streaming because they see a lot of other churches doing it.
Right.
And thus they believe this is the future, this is the correct thing for us. Now, why do we live stream? We live stream because we recognize that church attendance is declining. There's a lot more affluent people that are traveling. Maybe you've got people that are bedridden or in the military. They're business people, they're not around. You want them to connect with your church and the message of your church, even if they're not there present on a Sunday. So what do? We jump into live streaming. That's the structure. And then the style would be, oh, I love the way that they framed that tight shot.
Right.
The pastor is really framed well and it's really easy to watch. And then they go to the wide shot. That would be the style. The cinematography techniques, you should totally copy those. And the strategy of reaching people that may not attend church and confronting that truth that is troubling for so many of us, that we're attending church way less than before, that needs to be confronted as well. But if you just blindly copy the live stream, that middle section, that's when things can become dangerous. Is some of this making sense?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm kind of thinking of like Jenga or like a hamburger, like a sandwich. Like, it's always that thing in the middle that's kind of troublesome. And that was kind of the whole thesis of that why you shouldn't copy Elevation Church video was, we saw this, that so many churches and smaller churches were just investing money that they didn't have into apps, which was, like you said, the structure of what Elevation was doing because, well, Elevation is doing it, let's do this too and hope to get the similar results. But they should have just copied the strategy and the style and found their own solution that worked within their context, within their budget even, and find your own structure that's going to work for you. What's another example of this?
So the third and final one I chose was Instagram. So a lot of us love, to use them again as an example, what Elevation is doing on Instagram. If you want to copy some of their style within their design, go for it. That brutalism, that web brutalism, the design trend that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. If you love that style, that top of the pyramid, feel free to copy that. There aren't going to be too many negative consequences to you using Windows 95 brutalism in some of your social media graphics.
Right.
And there's not going to be too many negative consequences if you copy the strategy behind what Elevation does, that stop the scroll strategy that is so important to social. But if you look at what Elevation is doing on Instagram, the structure of Instagram, and assume that Instagram's right for you without looking into your own demographics, without understanding that Elevation has a global audience and you do not, and if you're a church of mostly 50 plus and no one's on Instagram in your church, then maybe it's not worth your time there, and that's where the blind copying would be detrimental.
Right.
At the end of the day, the problem with copying another church, it's the reason I say and get away with it in the title is not like get away with it without the other church realizing it. It's get away with it and not encounter negative consequences for your church due to the copying. If you copy the style of another church's social graphics, and when I say copy, I don't mean rip it off. Right? We're talking about emulating.
Yes.
The sincerest form of flattery. There's very little negative consequences that can come from copying another church's design style. Oh, I love that font. Oh, they used a script font. When we say copy, we mean, there's a huge trend towards script fonts, and Alex is the leader of it.
Yes, I am.
What a bad idea. But hey, if you want to follow that, go for it. Oh, you want small serif fonts? Well, that's a great idea. Go for that. Like, if you want to copy those, not too many negative consequences. If you look at the strategy of another church and recognize that they're trying to stop the scroll on social, recognizing that they're trying to confront the issue of lower church attendance, they're trying to confront the issue of using digital to share the message of Jesus, yes, copy that strategy. There's very little negative that can come from that. But if you blindly copy the structure, a church app, live streaming, Instagram, any digital thing that you can put in there, and you don't understand that bottom layer, that's when it can become troubling.
And Brady, I think you've articulated this well. Like, there's nothing gross about copying at a church and what they're doing, whether it's stylistically or their strategy, like you said, without ripping them off. But we have to remember that everything's a remix, right? Like nothing's new under the sun, and we're all just kind of flowing with these trends. And although Elevation is leading in a lot of these arenas, it's very few of the things that Elevation are doing is even innovative or their original idea. It's just
Correct.
a remix. They're just reusing old UI from 1995 Windows. They didn't create that. And so it's okay to emulate, and like you said, the highest form of flattery. Just to roll with what people are responding to online.
I copy people all the time and want to encourage you to do the same. But when you approach copying another church, another person, another designer, another videographer, remember this pyramid and try to copy their strategy or copy their style and get to those areas first before you just copy the structure. This is what comes into gear too, right? Someone shooting with a Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, and they're like, if I had that piece of gear, I would be them.
Right.
No. That's the structure, middle part. You can't just copy someone else's gear and expect to have the same results. That's not it at all. Sure, copy their style, their framing, their color grading, and then copy their strategy. Maybe the reason they chose that camera because of the dynamic range and because of the low light performance and because of the compactness of the camera. But if you just copy the camera without understanding the other parts, you're gonna reach some negative consequences. Gary Vaynerchuk has a quote that's a favorite of mine, which is, watch what I do. I don't listen to Gary's podcast anymore. I don't listen to any of his stuff. Not because I don't like him, just because I just watch what he does now, and I'm good enough at copying that I can reverse engineer the strategy behind it, or I can simply rip off the style because it's really easy to copy someone else's style, and I know that that's a great way to copy, will not encounter negative consequences for me or the company.
There you go.
And that'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Tools. We'll see you next time. watching this video now, make sure that you subscribe to this channel so you never miss another video.
We don't ask for much from you, but right now all I'm asking, just like this video.
Like the video and subscribe.